Hey folks, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer here, and we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and this tech MOOC. It's more than just your credit cards being stolen. It's probably one of the greatest opportunities business-wise coming in 2019. So we're going to talk about how those that listen to this program, you might be one of the people where somebody lifted your credit card and you need to know how it occurs. What are the ramifications for you? And if you want to turn this crisis into a career where you're going to want to listen, what we have coming forth from the University of Washington. That's what's coming up next.
Welcome to Tech MOOC. What's MOOC? Massive Open Online Courses. And this podcast will give you a massive dose of tech and business savvy. MOOCs from Harvard, MIT, Cambridge and every major university around the globe are the way to stay ahead of the business curve. Your host for this program is Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, the internet pioneer who created Scan to Connect and Scan Commerce. You know, why you're able to scan codes with your mobile device and get information. So let's get started. Here's Jovan.
Cybersecurity is a big one, and we're all affected by it. Think about this. You might not have heard about the breach yet, but have you ever been to Planet Hollywood? How about a Buca di Beppo or a Mixology? Have you been to any of those restaurants? Well, those particular establishments are establishments which have locations in over 40 states. And to be exact, about 2.15 million of you have had your credit and debit card numbers, the expiration dates, and some of the cardholder specifics lifted as you had dinner. Now, the parent company you might not have heard from, that's called Earl Enterprises, and they have just discovered that they have had a security breach of over 2 million credit card numbers stolen from their restaurants over a 10-month period. Now, you might not have been made aware of it yet, but believe me, it's coming. Their restaurants that they control are Planet Hollywood, Buca di Beppo, Mixology, and others, and their security researchers discovered that somebody hacked them online, and over 2.15 million of you lost your credit card numbers. Now, this breach took place between May 23rd, 2018 and March 18th, 2019. They're saying now, though, that the incident is, in fact, contained, but the breach impacted some of their restaurant locations, not just Buca di Beppo, but they also have Earl of Sandwich, Planet Hollywood, Chicken Guy, and Mixology and Tequila Taqueria outlet. In fact, the company has put up a website so you can find out if, in fact, your credit card number has been taken. Let's get into the specifics and let's find out how to fight it when we come back right after this.
Hang tight. Tech MOOC will be right back.
Let's consider the secret life of the innermost nesting doll. Living most of her life in the dark, inside the other nesting dolls, she has plenty of time to think, if she could. Sadly, she has no brain. However, when an innermost nesting doll hears that Geico not only saves people money, but also has been providing great service for over 75 years, she thinks it's obvious you should switch. Because yes, switching to Geico is a no-brainer. Pity the innermost nesting doll and her lot in life.
We're back. Here's Jovan with Tech MOOC.
Let's face it, shopping online has changed all of our lives. There's many things that we used to run to the store for to get that we now just order online. I, myself, and my family, we don't even do Christmas shopping in retail anymore. We literally do it all online just because it's easier, it's more convenient, and most of the time you can find the discounts from one retailer to the other competing for your business, and that is a great thing. But now, the threat of cybersecurity has changed it. You know, we were all a little reticent to give up our email addresses and credit card information. And then as we found out it was easy to do and relatively safe, we moved more into it. Now we actually just tap our phones to cash registers and they pay for us. That's how much the industry has changed. And it has led to this brand new industry of cybersecurity. That's what I want to talk about first before we get back into this credit card theft. I want to show you where you could go if you're interested in understanding or beginning, let's say, a degree in cybersecurity. It's what's hot in 2019. This particular MOOC is brought to you by the University of Washington, and they're doing an introduction to cybersecurity. Here is what the course teaches. It defines and key terms and concepts in the field, the overall field of cybersecurity. It teaches you to identify and distinguish, ready for this, threat actors and their motivations, how to match appropriate types of controls to the actions of different type of threat actors, and describe the differences in interactions among international agencies and how do they work together relating to cybersecurity. And it also teaches you to describe at least two potential legal challenges to cybersecurity in your country. It's going to help you kind of understand what you need to learn to get a good core foundation in cybersecurity. Now, this particular MOOC is self-paced. You're going to want to check that out simply because cybersecurity, if I was telling a younger set of millennial, what industry is the industry to go into, years ago it used to be creative and web design. Now that's all automated. Now it's cybersecurity. Probably the only thing more cooler than that is either being a professional gamer or, let's say, a drone pilot working for the government overseas. But cybersecurity is where it's at. Now, the company, like we just talked about, Buca de Pepa, Earl of Sandwich, Planet Hollywood, The Chicken Guy, Mixology, and Tequila Taqueria, well, all they've really done is launched a website. You may have may not seen this breach on your credit card. You may or may not have gotten an announcement. It's up to you to now know about this breach, and you have to go to their website and you check to see if the location you visited was one of the ones impacted, and then it basically only tells you to examine your statements for suspicious activity and then to notify them if in fact there is some weird activity on it, and they'll help you get a credit for it. But a lot of it is still dependent upon you recognizing what was going on, and that's not cool. These companies, I think it's incumbent upon them to, should we say, have their defenses covered right up front. They've got to truly have qualified people now doing this, looking at it in a different way than they've ever looked at it before, because it's big business. Think about it. If somebody gets a hold of several million cards and they just whip away 25 cents at a time and do this over the course of a year like this last one. This was a year in the taking. A tremendous amount of money can be stolen, very incremental and very small. That's why cyber security is where you're going to want to focus your attention if you're interested in getting into the tech business as a worker and inside some of these corporations. Let's talk about and let's take a look here at what some of the information officers, and now there's CISO, cyber security information officers, what they're saying should be paid attention to by corporations. Now, these quotes come to us from the Center for Internet Security. They asked some of these security officers what should be expected, what should be done. All of them unanimously says that the utilization of data across enterprises is only going to get larger and larger. But what they're saying is they're going to have increased enforcement. They're talking about accountability. What does accountability mean? Well, have you ever heard of CVEs? CVEs, that stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. It's expected to increase in 2019 by 5%. And now all of these businesses are having to step it up. They're having to do regular security assessments. Now, this is voluntary at this point in time, but it's where companies and businesses are required to provide some form of security assessment, an audit report, or a testament that they are increasing their work on general cybersecurity awareness. Now, there are some third-party companies out there that help assess these risks and or compliance and create cybersecurity standards, but right now, they are not mandatory. They are voluntary. And the next big attack is not going to be cyber warfare and just the corporations. Think about it. We just talked about your credit card. Cyber warfare now is a household term. Some of these experts predict an increase in attacks on critical infrastructure as well as the individual. Think about that. Could these phishers, as they're called, find their way into your home? Now, this is one reason why CTOs are talking about move to the cloud. Think about it. When you have an individual box or server that has your information on it, there is an individual address for it. If that address can be found, your information can be taken. But think about moving to the cloud. Organizations are continuing to shift their workloads into the cloud, right? As on-premise systems now become what's called end-of-life systems. It means those boxes that used to sit in the computer rooms like we all used to see them are now going away, because if it's put out on the cloud, it's harder to find and harder to identify. That's why the lines are now blurred related to cloud and legacy computer networks. As systems move to the cloud, today's workforce are now shifting to a remote environment. Possibly many of you work at home. So you're seeing a line blurring occur between where data enterprise actually lives and who's responsible for its integrity. It's no longer the term, like I used to say affectionately, the geeks in the weirdly air-conditioned room who have to check on everything. That geek very likely may sit on a remote mountaintop somewhere monitoring these systems. And that's why, as our environment moves to leveraging things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, we have to understand the impact of the volume of that data being generated, the volume of data collected, and how much risk is going to be involved as we all rely on more and more data. Which brings us to the closing here. It's now operating, this cybersecurity unit is calling for new tools. And some of these new tools are called cloud configuration monitoring. What happens is, these different IT developers, programmers, and end users kind of get together. Although they're disconnected, they have to begin to think like an organization that have access to these environments. It's kind of like being on the on-premise environment, but the cloud is out there dispersed. So it's a little harder to get at. But what you're going to want to look for in cloud security is alerts when settings have been altered. This is why 2019 is going to be a very, very critical year for cybersecurity. Until next time.
Thanks for being with us here on TechMOOC. You can find each episode using hashtag TechMOOC or search hashtag Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. Until next time.